The people destroying their mental health, grinding 14-hour days, are actually the least successful. That sounds crazy, right? Like everything you've been told your whole life is backwards? And here's the thing. It's not just backwards, it's scientifically backwards. And if you're Gen Z, you already feel it. You've been crushing yourself trying to climb a ladder that was never actually going anywhere. Nearly 50% of Gen Z workers say they're too exhausted to even keep going. Half of your generation is running on empty. But it gets worse. 83% of Gen Z is facing the highest levels of work stress, and 91% are showing full-blown burnout signs. You know what the worst part is? Gen Z hits peak burnout at age 25. 25. The average American doesn't hit that until they're 42. You're burning out 17 years earlier than you're supposed to. And it's not just feeling tired. 71% of Gen Z report the lowest workplace health scores of any generation. 55% have actually been diagnosed with or treated for a mental health condition because of work. That's more than half your generation. Think about what that means. You're not just stressed, you're clinically unwell. Here's what I find most telling. 30% of Gen Z battles productivity anxiety every single day, and 58% experience it numerous times per week. That's the constant background hum of your life. That feeling that you're not doing enough, that you should be doing more, that something's wrong with you for not being able to keep up. But here's where it gets really interesting. Because the thing everyone tells you, just work harder, that's not just wrong, it's mathematically wrong. Stanford did research on this. They looked at actual productivity data across weeks of different lengths, and what they found was shocking to basically everyone except people who actually study this stuff. Productivity starts declining sharply after 50 hours a week. But here's the kicker. After 55 hours, productivity tanks so hard that working more hours literally doesn't matter. Someone working 70 hours accomplishes the same amount as someone working 55 hours. They're just working more, getting the same results, destroying their health for the same outcome. It's like you're running on a treadmill and someone cranks up the speed, but the distance you've covered stays exactly the same. Except you're sweating more, your heart's beating faster, and you're about to collapse. And the health consequences aren't subtle. People working 55 plus hours have a 35% higher risk of stroke and a 17% higher risk of dying from heart disease compared to people working 35 to 40 hours. You're literally shortening your life. So the scientific reality is this. If you want to actually be successful, if you want to be productive, innovative, creative, you need to work less, not more. But nobody tells you that because it doesn't sell. Everyone's making money telling you to grind. Your favorite influencer is telling you to wake up at 5 a.m. Your LinkedIn feed is full of people humble bragging about working 12-hour days. The entire culture is built on convincing you that suffering equals success. But the data says the opposite. And here's what I think is even worse. The people working the hardest often end up being the least successful. Let me tell you about someone. A 21-year-old breakfast radio presenter. Smart girl, talented, driven. She walked into her boss's office one day and broke down crying. Couldn't explain why, just tired of everything. Her body was literally telling her something her mind hadn't accepted yet. This isn't sustainable. Another person I found told it perfectly. She described burnout like this: the feeling of constantly rushing, but never being around. You're there, your body's at work, but you're not present, you're not living, you're just existing in a state of panic. Then there's a 25-year-old project coordinator whose workload quadrupled in a single year. And when she finally got the courage to ask about a raise, she found out the new hire doing the same job was making more than her. So she did what 34% of her generation is now doing. She's planning to leave. 42% of Gen Z workers have already quit their jobs due to lack of growth. That's not laziness. That's not entitlement. That's a generation saying, this doesn't work. And the financial burden? Don't even get me started. Gen Z graduates with between $200,000 to $300,000 in student loans. You're starting life in debt. Imagine that. You haven't earned your first real paycheck and you're already $200,000 in the hole. And then the job market tells you to work harder, climb the ladder, sacrifice your 20s for security. Except there is no security anymore. Home prices are impossible. The job market is unstable. Your parents worked 60-hour weeks their whole lives and got laid off via Zoom during a pandemic. You watched that. You know that promise is a lie. So what did the market cost Gen Z? According to the data, poor mental health will cost the global economy $6 trillion per year by 2030. And 61% of that cost comes from productivity loss. People literally too broken to work. That's the real cost of hustle culture. There's something that researchers call the crisis of hope. And I think it explains everything about why Gen Z is rejecting hustle culture. Previous generations had a deal. It was unspoken but clear. Sacrifice your 20s and 30s, work hard, and you'll have security later. That was the contract. And your parents, millennials and Gen X, they fulfilled their part of the contract. They worked, they climbed, they networked. They did everything right. And then the economy collapsed. Pensions disappeared. Job loyalty evaporated. Layoffs became routine. They brought that stress home every single night. You watched it. So when someone tells you, Gen Z, to sacrifice your present for a future that might not exist, you're like, no, absolutely not. Why would I do that? And here's the thing. You're right. Because the implicit deal has shattered. Entry-level jobs no longer guarantee advancement or stability. Relentless effort feels less promising and more exhausting. The math doesn't work anymore. Even with promotions, even with grinding, you still can't afford a house. The wealth inequality gap is so massive that climbing the ladder doesn't matter. You're still not going to win. And consciously or unconsciously, Gen Z knows this. 94% of Gen Z are rejecting management positions. Not because they're lazy, but because they're lucid. They see that being a manager means more stress, more responsibility, worse work-life balance, and at the end of it all, you still don't win. They're choosing career lily pads, movement, flexibility, autonomy, over the traditional ladder climb. They're literally redefining what success means because the old definition leads to burnout and heartbreak. Here's what blew my mind when I researched this. The people who perform the best, who are actually successful, they're not grinding 14-hour days. They're not skipping sleep. They're not sacrificing everything. 77% of remote and hybrid workers say they have flexibility to manage work and life. And you know what? 51% of workers say they feel most productive when they have that flexibility. Let that sink in. More flexibility doesn't make you less productive, it makes you more productive. 85% of fully remote employees say flexible schedules greatly benefit their work-life balance. And companies are noticing. High performers with work-life balance maintain their energy, creativity, and motivation. They can keep delivering excellence because they're not running on fumes. It's like the difference between a sprinter and a marathon runner. You can't sprint for 70 hours. You'll collapse. But if you actually pace yourself, you go further. The science backs this up too. There's something called the effort recovery model. It's simple. You do hard work, then you need to recover. Rest isn't laziness. Rest is fuel. Insufficient recovery literally results in diminished performance. It's physics, not philosophy. Regular exercise boosts mental performance. Mindfulness reduces stress and enhances focus. Emotional resilience from taking care of yourself helps you navigate career ups and downs with ease. So the irony is delicious. If you actually want to be successful, you need to stop grinding. You need to set boundaries. You need to let go. And this is exactly what Gen Z is doing. The bare minimum Monday trend went viral. Literally people saying, I'm going to start my week slowly and take care of myself. That's not lack of ambition. That's smart strategy. People are quitting jobs that destroy them. They're rejecting promotions that come with burnout. They're choosing roles that let them do their best work without destroying their lives. They're winning by detaching from the system that was designed to consume them. Look, I'm not saying you shouldn't work hard. I'm not here to tell you ambition is a bad thing or that you should just do nothing. What I am saying is this: the system is broken. The promise? It's a lie. And your generation, for the first time, is actually waking up and seeing it clearly. 61% of Gen Z would leave their current job for significantly better mental health benefits. That's not entitlement. That's just common sense. Work-life balance is now the #1 workplace motivator for Gen Z, above money, above titles, above everything else. They understand something older generations are still figuring out. You can't buy your life back once you've sacrificed it. And the crazy part? Companies that listen to this are thriving. Remote-first companies with flexible schedules are attracting top talent. They're more productive, their employees are more loyal, they're winning. The old way, the 60-hour week, the always-on culture, the hustle mindset, that's not the future. That's the past choking itself to death. And if you're Gen Z, if you're feeling that guilt about not grinding hard enough, about not sacrificing enough, let me tell you something. You're not broken. The system is. Your instinct to protect your mental health? That's not laziness. That's wisdom. Your refusal to sacrifice your present for a future that might not exist? That's not lack of ambition. That's rationality. So here's what I want you to do right now. Think about your own life. Where are you grinding unnecessarily? Where are you sacrificing for a promise that's already broken? What's one boundary you could set this week that would actually protect you? It could be small, stopping work at a certain time, not checking emails on weekends, saying no to one extra project. But it matters because the system only works if we keep buying in. And if we stop, then maybe we finally get to define what success actually means. Not more, not faster, not 14-hour days for a promise of maybe, but sustainable, healthy, real. If this resonated with you, if you felt the pressure of toxic productivity culture, hit that like button and subscribe, because we're building a community of people who refuse to burn out for a system that doesn't work. And if you have a story, if you've quit a toxic job, set a boundary, chose your mental health over a promotion, drop it in the comments, because your generation needs to hear that there's another way. Thanks for watching. Now go take care of yourself.